And so we know that kind of a big thing in our area, and I know it's common in a lot of nonprofits, is that we don't have huge teams of people, right? A lot of us are wearing many different hats. We do the same thing at the Community Foundation. So try to drill down on some things of what success might look like if you have a small team. What are some of the things to focus on, particularly with our timeline with 5-6 weeks out? What are some things to do to achieve success? And success is definitely possible with a small team, and in the time that we have. So I'll get into it. Can move my slides. There we go. So the first thing is I would avoid these assumptions. So don't just sign up for the giving day and not promote that you're involved or let your supporters know. This happens sometimes, and sometimes it's a matter of, you get really busy and you had plans to focus on the giving day, but you get put out a fire elsewhere, which we totally understand. But just don't assume that people will find you on the website. We provide the platform and tools and trainings and resources, and we can help with your strategy. But then you have to implement that strategy and ask people to support your work. Another assumption, don't assume that people only need to be told once that you're participating. Everyone is busy, so you want to make sure that you're reminding folks in all the different channels and ways that you talk to people. If you're on social media, if you have an email newsletter, if you see people in person, or if people come into your space, put up signs, let them know that you're participating and keep reminding them. People want to support you, but we're all busy, and so you need that prodding sometimes. And then the last assumption to avoid is we need to raise a lot of money to be successful. So we have one organization, Springhouse, they're out in Floyd County. They're a school, some of you might be familiar with them. They raised over $100,000 last year, which is fantastic. But not everyone's going to have that kind of success and the time to put into that kind of fundraising effort. They have all their students fundraise and so forth. So a couple of $1,000s in this event, or a few $100s, whatever your goal is, that it's all more money in the bank for your organization. So tailor your goal to what your organization needs and what you think you can do to be successful. And so with setting your goal, donors want to know that there's thought behind it. Don't just pick a random number because it sounds good. And particularly if you're starting off, maybe this is the first year you're participating or you haven't participated in a few years, I would pick a lower goal, maybe $1,000 to $3,000. And the reason why is because your donors need to get used to being asked for this event. If you don't normally have a fundraiser in June, or if you don't usually ask, if you don't have a huge donor list, or if you don't usually ask individual donors, maybe you're more grant-based, this is a new thing that you're introducing your donors to. So you're not necessarily going to raise a ton of money your first year, but having a kind of a more modest goal, 1,000 to 3,000, can kind of help you. If you achieve success with that, you can build up that momentum for next year and say, hey, last year we raised 2,500, let's go for 3,500 this year. So it's all about getting your donors used to participating in this style of an event. And you're sort of training people to expect you to reach out in June. And so it's kind of that everyone's getting used to it. You're getting used to it. Your donors are getting used to it. So that's why I recommend that people aim for a lower goal, and not picking a random number. So don't pick 3,000 just because you're like, okay, that's the higher end of the range there. I'm going to go for that. Tie it to something. So think about what you're fundraising for. Are you trying to breathe some life into a program that hasn't gotten a lot of donor attention? Are you, do you need to buy some kind of equipment? Are you paying for day-to-day operations? Whatever it is, have kind of little method behind the madness. So does that $3,000 goal represent the amount you spend each month on your operations? And you can let folks know that, and you can let them know, hey, we spend this much every month, and you'll keep us help us keep going for another month and continue on. Or this is how much a piece of equipment buys is. So whatever it is, just make sure you're being specific, so people know you didn't pick the number out of thin air. People like to know that their money is going towards something. And then if you're able to, share what specific donation amounts represent. So if you're able to say a $10 gift will buy X, that's really helpful to conceptualize, or 25 or 100. If you're not able to get that granular, you can say, you know, this is the kind of thing we spend our money on. We have to get these supplies or these gift cards or whatever it might be. Just give that context so people have a sense of what their donation is going toward. Because even if you're reaching out to supporters who know you well, they might not know the nitty gritty of kind of the daily operations, and let them in on it. Let them know what you're spending money on, and you're demonstrating, hey, we steward your money well when you give it to us. We're a good bet to place your money on, and we will use it well to help folks or animals or environment, whatever your work is. And then make sure to set up your organization page. So everyone, when you sign up, if it's your first time, an organization page is created for you, and then you need to go in and populate it. If you're participating again, you just need to go and update your page. And I can show you kind of an example of this after the presentation, but there's a banner image at the top that you can add and add your logo. You'll want to post your fundraising goal once you know what it is. And then there's a section where you can tell your story. Tell people that piece again of those specifics of what you're fundraising for and what their donations are going to. And then there's a few other items to review. You can look at the donation form, the thank you page, and the tax receipt. Those are all places where you have a chance to reiterate your thanks and personalize. And I'll show you each one of those. But these are all kind of a few checklist items that once you review all of these, you'll be ready to go for June 1st when early giving starts. Next, again, thinking about if you have a smaller team, and sometimes a smaller team doesn't necessarily mean you don't have a lot of donors. So we know that some folks are sort of just starting out with fundraising and are building their donor list. Others have a substantial list of people who have given. So it just sort of depends. Either way, think about your top champions. And when I think about what that means, think about who's most involved in your organization, who's most excited about it. So that might be board members, it might be volunteers, it might be longtime donors, it could be people who always come to your events, it could be people on your team. And think about how you want to engage with them. And I would say at this point in the process, make sure at the very least, all these people know that you are participating in this event and you would love for them to make a gift. And they can make a gift as low as $5 on the website. So it doesn't have to be a life-changing amount of money, although none of us would turn down a lot of money, right? But just let them know what part of this is, yes, we want to reach our fundraising goal, but this is also about all of us working together. And so we want to see a lot of donors as well. So whatever they're able to give, you would really appreciate it. And then if they're able to share about the event, maybe on social media, or maybe they email a couple friends. Another group of folks to look at is look at your past donors. If you have an email list for those folks, probably the most powerful thing you can do if you don't have a lot of time is send a note to all of those people and say, hey, save the date, we're participating in this. When June 1st rolls around, you can start making donations on the website, or you can send in a check, however folks want to give. And you can kind of, depending on how many donors you have, you could kind of split it into a couple lists. So a couple lists that I would suggest, if you don't have a ton of time, maybe do it in 2 emails. Think about people who have donated recently, so maybe in the last 6 months, and then people who maybe it's been maybe 6 months to a year on the more recent list, and then people who haven't donated in maybe a year or so. Or more rather. So that more recent donor list, say, thank you so much for your gift in this last year. We really appreciate it. We're participating in this event. We'd love for you to help us out. And then share your case for support. This is what we're fundraising for. For the folks who haven't given in a little bit, say, thank you so much for your past support. We wanted to let you know about this fun event that we're participating in. And so you just tailor it a little bit differently. But when you do that, when you take a little bit of that time, you're saying to the donor, we've noticed your past behavior and we really appreciate it. And then another thing you can do is maybe ask your top champions, your staff, to reach out to their personal networks. And you might have some folks who are like, okay, I'm going to email everyone I know, which is great. But just to ask people, what we're really asking here is just ask a couple people. It doesn't have to be a huge task for you to do, but if you could reach out to 2 or 3 loved ones, that would be really helpful. And you can provide them with the email that you're going to send out to folks and say, feel free to personalize this. But the email is your friend when you don't have a big team and you don't have a lot of time. And it's your friend when you have a big team and you have more time. You're just able to do a few more things. But if you need to concentrate your efforts, develop an email that shares your case for support, send them directly to your page and ask them to give, and then remind them to give. So with developing your messaging, I always recommend that you both use numbers and narrative in a story. And you want to be reiterating these messages across channels. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel. Say you are using email and Facebook and Instagram. You don't have to write a completely different thing each time. You want to tailor it to each platform. You know, with an email, you can write a couple paragraphs. You don't want to do the same thing on Instagram or Facebook necessarily, but condense it on social media. Or condense it on a flyer, but you want to be sharing similar stories. You know, every month we serve 500 people at our food pantry. That's a really impressive number. It shows the breadth of the work you do. And then if you share a more personal story, some kind of anecdote about maybe a client you work with, and it depends on your work on how much information you want to share, but you can keep it generic of, I gave an example here of, one day a mom came to us asking for assistance, and then we were able to connect her to other services. So some kind of narrative, some kind of anecdote where you're sharing that this is what we're able to provide, that more personal side of things. And combining those in the messaging you're sharing out. And again, you want to be reaching out to your supporters early and often. But don't reinvent the wheel. If you don't have a big social media presence, now is not the time to necessarily jump on all of the different platforms, because that takes time to grow your audience on each one. Use what you're already doing. So if you already have an email newsletter or you have Facebook, use those platforms. If you, and I know some folks don't necessarily have those items, that's okay. If you have a website, you can put it on your website. And in this particular case, if you're kind of not on a bunch of different, you're not using a bunch of communication tactics, focus on that email list. And let them know that they will be hearing from you a little bit more than usual with the Giving Day. With a Giving Day event, because there's so many updates that you can potentially provide, you'll be emailing folks a little bit more. And let them know, hey, if you don't want to receive these emails, that's okay. Just send me a note. But the goal here is to let people know that you're participating and let them know how they can help. And I say supporters here because certainly probably the first group you want to reach out to, your top champions, your past donors. But if you have other people who like your mission or are interested in your work, but they haven't given yet, you can send them a message as well. But let people know that this is what you're doing and that they should save the date.
Are you on the phone?
And then, is there a magic amount of email to send to people? No. It kind of depends on what you have time for and what you think makes sense for your supporters. So here's a few project updates to consider. I would say if you haven't already let people know that you're participating, it's a great idea to let people know now to save the date. And you can start making a gift online starting June 1st, or you can send in a check, drop off cash. Less common is a wire transfer, but those are the options for different types of gifts. But let people know now that you're participating. Post it on social media, send an email to folks. But here are a few progress updates to consider. You could let people know early in June that early giving has kicked off so they can make their gift anytime. If you hit a certain milestone, if you get to 20 donors, or you get to halfway to your goal, you can let people know. Or if it's halfway to the Giving Day and you want people to know, okay, we've raised $500, let's keep the momentum going. It's a good idea to check in at least one time, mid-June-ish. Or it could be the week before the Giving Day. you can wait a little bit longer for that momentum to build up. And then the day of the giving day, let people know it's here, it's kicking off at noon, or let them know it kicked off at noon and we're ready to go. And kind of depending on how the day goes, you know, it's possible that you're getting a lot of momentum toward your goal and you only need a few more donors. Maybe you send a note to people and say, hey, if you haven't given yet, please go and make a gift. Or you can kind of look at the list of people who have given, take them off your email list and email everyone else. And then always make sure to report on results after the event. Don't assume that people will go to your webpage and check on how you did. Let them know what you were able to accomplish with their support, and make sure you're thanking your donors early and often. So that's what I would say. That's my advice. If you have a small team and not a ton of time, focus on that email list, have a specific fundraising goal and have some that thought behind it and that strategy behind it, and then tell people about it and ask for their support.